When it comes to my favorite consoles of all time, I think the Sega Saturn is right there at the top because I've just loved this system ever since I was a kid. I remember the first time I played a Sega Saturn. I actually rented one because you could rent systems back in the day from a local video game store. And of course, I got a copy of X-Men Children of the Atom with it. And I was just absolutely blown away by this system. At that time, I had a Sega Genesis at home, and I was a huge fan of Sega games and Sega arcade games. And to be able to play arcade quality titles at your house was just something that was really unheard of at the time, especially during the 16-bit era. The very few times I would go to arcades at the mall or something like that, I would always seek out certain games, and most of the time they were Sega titles, whether we're talking about House of the Dead or a Virtua Fighter or Virtua Fighter 2, or my absolute favorite, Daytona USA. Daytona! Like, I would hear that when I walked in the arcade, and I would make a beeline towards the Daytona machine because I needed to play that game. I thought it was just so awesome. It looked so good and it played so good. And to see the Sega Saturn get home console versions of Sega's biggest arcade games was just an absolutely awesome thing. Now, against my better judgment, I'm making another Sega Saturn video today because the last Sega Saturn video I made was actually shared in a Facebook group I'm in on Facebook that I've been a member of for many years, and I guess people didn't realize I was in there because I was called a bunch of names. I was a fake Sega Saturn fan. I was clout chasing in algorithms because I guess the Sega Saturn is considered popular nowadays. I don't know. You wonder why people don't make as much retro gaming content anymore on YouTube. It's because of elitist weirdos like those people who just hate anyone who does anything and talks about something that they like. It's very strange to me. But like I said, against my better judgment, we're going to talk about the Sega Saturn today because recently I got my hands on something that I've never owned, and that is a boxed Model 1 Sega Saturn system. I recently got this off of Whatnot, which of course is a live auction website where you can bid on stuff live. Some of the people have buy it nows and stuff like that. And there's lots of video games, toys, sneakers, whatever you like to collect is pretty much on there. I'll have a link to sign up in the description box down below if you haven't signed up already. If you sign up, you get some free money to spend on your first purchase. If you make a purchase, I get money, so I could buy more stuff with this money that I get on Whatnot. I've been collecting a lot of boxed consoles lately, as I've been showcasing kind of throughout this past year. I'm not really collecting games anymore, but there's a reason I'm doing the boxed consoles, which one day when I'm done with it, we'll actually get to why I've been doing all this. But today I want to take a look at this Sega Saturn and just talk about this system that I've acquired, talk about the differences between this system and the system that I've had for nearly 20 years now, and just remember the Sega Saturn because it was just so damn cool, man. Alright, but before we look at the one that I just bought, this is the Sega Saturn that I've had since I believe I was 20. I picked this up from Rhino Games, my original Sega Saturn that I got when I was a kid. I actually gave away to someone else, but this is a Sega Saturn Model 2. There are slight differences between the Model 2 and the Model 1. Like I said, I've had this since I was 20 years old. 17 years this has been in my possession. It still works like a champ. I absolutely love it. And whenever I play retro games, I'm usually playing Sega Saturn stuff. You can look at the back of it. Yeah, you know, it's missing the little piece. There's a little bit of wear and tear on it, but this is a system that gets played. This is a system that gets enjoyed like most consoles should be enjoyed. Of course, we have the Model 2 controller as well. This honestly is one of my favorite controllers of all time. It just fits perfectly in my hand specifically. The button layout is perfect for me. The triggers are nice. I love the D-pad on it. And I love the freaking Sega Saturn. So when I saw this system on Whatnot, I was like, you know what? I got to get my hands on it. This is a Model 1 system that comes with the video game sampler enclosed because you couldn't afford any more games because it was $400 freaking dollars when it came out and the PlayStation 1 was $299. You can see the box has some wear on it and stuff, but considering that it came out in 1994, I think it's in pretty good condition. You can see here on the side, they have some of the games that were going to be coming out. Virtua Fighter, which wasn't a great version. Virtua Cop Bug, Panzer Dragoon, Mr. Bones, which actually took a little bit longer. This I thought was really cool. It has all the system specs right here on the side of the box. So like, if you're wondering, like, what's the processor on it and all that sort of stuff, like, bam, it's right there in front of you. Of course, the back of the box, just tons of, like, cool marketing stuff. Looking at some of these games, and of course, seeing the final versions that ended up coming out of these games, you know, there are some differences between those versions and the final version. The football game didn't look like that at all. It looked kind of sloppy comparative to what they were showing in this picture. We got Virtua Fighter 2 and 1 on the back of the box, so, you know, double bang for your buck. you know, we got some hype marketing and stuff like that. It was just it was a different time. You know, it was a different time frame where you had to say, you know, big buzzwords and stuff. Like, what do you think blast processing was? At the end of the day, it was just a marketing term. You can see Congo on there too. That was a freaking terrible game. I actually own it. But let's open this bad boy up and take a look at the system itself. We got a few more games there on that side panel, but let's open this up. Look at the literature that came with your Model 1 Sega Saturn system and just, you know, have a trip down memory lane. I always loved stuff like this. I always read every manual and every sort of promo material that came in here. You get a free demo of Panzer Dragoon with this thing here. It's got a weird rat on it. Why does it have a weird rat on it? I don't know. You got to register your systems. You can't do it online, of course. You got to mail it in, and they ask you a bunch of questions. Okay, I'll get right on it. Oh, we got the weird bald head Sega Saturn lady. What was that? Like, what was that? She was used in so much marketing because I guess her head kind of looked like the planet Saturn. Sega America's marketing team was out of their freaking mind. It was crazy. Some basic stuff, important. This is important information before you play with your Sega Saturn kiddies. And then, of course, a nice thick manual, because you got to have a thick manual. We'll actually take a little bit of a closer look at this. But, you know, I like these manuals and stuff. I think it's cool to sort of visit, you know, what sort of peripherals are going to come out, how to work certain things. You don't really get things like this with the modern consoles anymore. So it's kind of a shame in my opinion, but I guess it is what it is. Here we have our system. We have our sampler disc so we can play some hot demos. I actually don't own this sampler disc. This is the first time I have personally owned this, so that's pretty cool. I got a new Saturn game for my collection. You can see my stupid face in the reflection too a little bit. I try to avoid that when I'm making these videos, but it's tough, man. It's tough. Like, I'm not good at what I do here. And here we have it. Here we have our Model 1 Sega Saturn. Now, what's the difference between the Model 2 and the Model 1 is what you're saying. Pretty much mostly just an aesthetic thing. When you compare them side to side, you could see, you know, what the main differences are. The Model 1 Sega Saturn, of course, has this sort of, you know, covering to it. It's kind of a glossy finish where that is just flat. The buttons are a different size. They're more, you know, oval instead of just a circle, which is kind of interesting. It says access on there for some freaking reason, but size-wise, they're pretty much the same system. It's just, you know, pretty much cosmetic related stuff as far as I can tell with these systems. I mean, they all play the same games. You can tell that this system's in pretty good shape, though. It actually has the back piece on it, which my Saturn does not. But you can also see the different model numbers on here, where the original is the 1 model number and the revised model has an A at the end of it. You know, pretty much just basic stuff as far as they're concerned. I'm not sure if there was something different with the lasers or whatever. Don't crucify me, retro nerds. I'm just basing this on an aesthetic thing because at the end of the day, they play the games the exact same way. It's not like various sound chips with the Sega 1 to the Sega 2 and then the Sega Genesis Model 3. But yeah, I really like the look of this system. I think I actually like the look of this system more so than I like the Model 2. I like the little Sega branding on there too. I think that's a really cool touch. And I just think it's a better looking system. I think that glossiness kind of offsets it a little bit more. I like the text on there. But yeah, I'm very happy to have this in my collection now because, like I said, I'm trying to collect these box systems. And for me, a Sega Saturn is something that needs to be in my collection. What I end up doing with this collection, like I said, one day you will eventually find out. But this was an important system to have in my collection. Make sure you get your RF adapter, kiddies. No AV cables for you because your TV is poverty. I needed to get an RF cable for mine. One thing I did notice, though, is that this is not the original controller. The original controller is wider and fatter, and this is a Model 2 controller. I have a Model 1 controller somewhere, so I will throw that into this box to make it a more complete system. But yeah, man, I just love the Sega Saturn. I wanted a reason to talk about it again, and this was a good reason to talk about it, to showcase money wasted on whatnot of this beautiful Model 1 system. Just look at it, man. The glossiness, how the light refracts off of it and stuff, the different text on there. Like, it's a better looking system. It's a better looking. It doesn't have the Sega in the front though. That kind of reminds me of the Dreamcast a little bit. But yeah, this is my new Sega Saturn. I hope you enjoyed this nostalgia trip. There's my kitchen sink as well. I film these in the kitchen because the lighting's good. Let me know what you think of the Saturn in the comments section down below. Did you have a Model 1? Did you have a Model 2? Did you never have a Saturn? Because, I don't know, I guess you're not happy with yourself. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Saturn Facebook groups, Retro Elitists, please don't bury me and crucify me for making another Saturn video. It's all made out of love. Get your emotions in check. Build some friendships outside of the internet, and let's just talk about video games, man. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.